Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that teaches you how to advance into retirement rather than retreating. I'm your host and valedictorian, Eric Brotman, and we have a true celebrity on our show today. Jeanette Pavini is an Emmy-award-winning consumer and investigative reporter. She's completed over 10,000 money-saving segments for CBS News, Hallmark's Home and Family, and MarketWatch. She's the author of The Joy of Saving, Money Lessons I Learned from My Italian-American Father, and 20 years as a consumer reporter, and she offers people unique money-saving strategies. She's been a guest contributor on The Today Show. Her advice has been featured absolutely everywhere, hundreds of places. Good Morning America, Oprah.com, and now, thankfully, Don't Retire, Graduate. Jeanette, I cannot read your bio. It is simply too long and amazing for us to fit it into a half-hour show, but welcome. Thank you for being on this morning.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I'm really happy and excited to be here.
You have an incredible career of helping consumers make decisions around personal finance, and starting mostly with money mindset. And so, can you share a little bit with us, sort of how this became your passion? And was this deliberate? Did you know about it? Was it an accident? Did you fall into this magnificent career? And how did you discover that money mindset was the key to getting started?
Well, I guess I really developed this career out of my own need, in a way. I was living, in the Bay Area, which is a very expensive place to live. And this is going back about 25 years. And I was a single mom at the time. And I was having a hard time. I was, struggling along. And I went into this thinking, okay, how do I make it easier? How can I afford to live, buy my kids clothes, pay the bills and all these things? And so I pitched a show idea through our public access, and the show ended up being kind of like a uplifting show, but it wasn't really about, saving money. So I took my idea and I went to a local station that had a show called All Consuming. And I did a story, my first one, on how to put a kid's wardrobe together for under $100, a complete wardrobe. And it was a hit. It just resonated. People were writing in and they wanted more. And really, Eric, that was my very first segment. I wasn't even reporting at the time, but I just started doing these money-saving segments. And it just got so much attention that it just evolved into this 20 plus year career. And I realized along the way through my father, this wonderful Italian American who saved every penny, that, your mindset had more to do with it than just about anything when it came to saving money.
I love that. And I think at the end of the day, consumers love to save money. Everyone loves to feel like they've gotten a deal, like they've gotten a sale. I think some consumers like to rationalize some of their purchasing by saying, hey, I got such a good price on this, I had to buy it even though it wasn't something they needed. So maybe you can talk to consumer mindset a little bit in addition to money mindset, because you certainly have the background for that. But what are the endorphins? I'm no scientist, but what are the endorphin rushes that come in from feeling like you got a good deal? It's kind of like the car buying experience is feeling like you won a deal or something.
Yeah, I like to say many consumers' closets are filled with great deals still with their price tags on it. In other words, they buy it just because it's a great deal, not because you need it. And I think that part of it comes with, kind of like okay, I got the deal and it's this thrill of success. But my theory is people need to get more excited about seeing $100 in their savings account than they do seeing the $400 pair of shoes that was marked down to $100 in their closet. You have to shift what excites you about money. And it's interesting, when people start saving money and make the choice that instead of spending it, they're going to save it, and they actually go online and they look and see what's in their bank account and that it's growing, it starts to shift over to that's where your obsession and excitement comes from. But I think that there's this, it feels good when we buy something new, and it's exciting, but it's very short-lived until we move on to the next. And yet when you save money, it stays with you because that money's still there. So I often say, put something on hold, decide whether you really need it, and then make the decision of buying the purchase. And the bottom line is, there will always be another sale. So if you miss it this time and you wait, that's okay, because something will go on sale again.
So you're a single mom. You're living in San Francisco area, Bay Area, 25 years ago, one of the most expensive places to live in the United States still. So the only question I can come up with is how? How do you do that? How do you bootstrap in a situation that sounds almost dire?
Yeah, I mean, I was, definitely living paycheck to paycheck. This is back when I was, in my 20s. So actually, probably about 30 years ago, I was in my 20s and late 20s. So I think that I was lucky in that I saw my father, who was, part of the greatest generation, right? They lived through the Depression, they lived through World War II, and they came out of that era not only, surviving, but really thriving. And I don't know how my dad did it, but there were 5 of us kids, so 7 mouths to feed, and we lived in San Francisco. I don't think my dad made ever more than probably at his height, maybe, and of course this is going way back, but $45,000, $50,000 a year. And yet we never really went without. I mean, we didn't live extravagantly, but we went to private Catholic schools in San Francisco. We always had food on our table, and there were 7 mouths to feed. But, so I learned from him that he just, he always said, in my generation, you'd earn a quarter, and then you'd save 10 cents, you'd spend 15. Your generation earns a quarter, spends the quarter, and then borrows another quarter at 25% interest. So he really started to talk to me and spend time with me, and I learned a lot from that generation of that money mindset. They never felt deprived of anything at all. They just felt more of the sense of gratitude for everything. It was amazing. And when my dad passed away about 6 years ago, I mean, he and my mom owned their home in San Francisco. He had a significant amount of money saved in the bank account, and to take care of my mom. And so it was really his mindset that evolved my mindset.
So I'm going to ask you a loaded question, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, because I don't want to mess up your family Thanksgivings forever. But did your 4 siblings also glean this knowledge, or did he just happen to spend that time with you, or you were receptive to it? Is this something that the whole family adopted, or was this something you had your antenna up and said, I want to adopt that?
I think all of us grew up that way. I was the youngest of the 5, so I think we've all adopted it. We're all very conscious of spending money and trying not to, and always living within our means. I think that's key. I think I'm the only one, though, that built a career on it and wanted to share that with people, because Eric, what I really try to do is make people see that there is always a better way to save money. There is a way to move forward, because when you have credit card debt and when you can't pay bills, I've been there. I know it's like a monkey on your back that just doesn't seem to ever want to get off, but you can. And so I did build a career on that, and it took off, because I think that this is something that people get excited about once they hear, okay, wait a minute, this is something I actually do have control over. It's important to realize you want to have control over your finances as opposed to your finances having control over you. And this is at any age. I mean, I'm in my mid-50s, and a lot of my friends are my age or a little older, thinking about retirement, and a lot of them are still worried about, saving money. And so I think that if you could start this at a young age, that's great. But I do believe it's never too late.
There's a whole lot of evidence to support that time is the greatest resource when it comes to wealth building, time and behavior. starting early and doing the right things really are far more important than having the right investment or the right even luck. It really is about behavior.
Yes.
There are so many young people today who are stuck with student loans, for example. I think it's even worse than the consumer debt that I think in the 80s and 90s there was a lot of consumer debt, but now I think it's almost all student loans for young people. They can't launch. Yeah. They may want to, and especially in the Bay Area. I mean, forget it. People are, if I'm not mistaken, people are renting RVs in their driveway for thousands of dollars a month. Like, that's crazy. So how do you do that? How do you get the education that you desire and that you're capable of handling so that you can build a career and build a vitae like so many of us did you and I are contemporaries. So what we did in the 80s and 90s to build our vitae, if you will, how do young people do that when the price tag is exorbitant and they're going to wind up with starting in a hole instead of starting at zero?
Yeah, it is a different era, and our era that we grew up in was different than our parents, and so I think each generation presents this set of challenges, and I believe in education, but I do agree it's really difficult when you come out of school and you get a job and then you spend years paying back your debt. I think it comes back down to really living within your means, and I feel like the first step for anyone in that position is to sit down, and I mean, it goes back to basics, just writing out what all of your monthly expenses are, and what's set in stone, like your student loan payment or your rent or things like that, and what you have flexibility in. Your cell phone bills, your entertainment, your grocery bill. Your grocery bill is the one thing that you have the most flexibility on, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then you look at the things that aren't set in stone, that are flexible, and you say, okay, how do I either live without this for now or make it the least expensive that I possibly can? And for example, I'll give you your grocery bill I mentioned. People just go to the grocery store and they spend hundreds of dollars. If you plan your grocery bill, if you plan your grocery shopping list around what's on sale at one of your local grocery stores, you're one of their reward card members, you take advantage of any deals, you use coupons. Coupons have come a long way. Apps make it so easy. You then take control of that bill. And I've done this experiment, Eric, so many times. You save about 40 to 50% off your grocery bill. Right there, you could save $100, $150 a month, depending on what type of groceries you buy. So now you have a little bit more money that you're saving that could go towards those things that are set in stone. I have a great story of a college student, someone coming out of college, that wrote to me yesterday with a photo, and she read the book, and she didn't really know about coupon codes or promotion codes, and she was ordering something that was $40 online. She decided to Google and look and find, and she found a promotional code that saved her 50% off her first time purchase. And so she was so excited, she took a picture of it and she saved $20. So those little things add up. And you mentioned time. It takes 5 minutes to look for a promotion code, and yet you could save the equivalent of an hour and a half of your wages, if you're making $14, $15 an hour. So I think that it's really, knowledge is power. And then the other thing in regards to student loans is to talk to your lenders. I'm a firm believer, if you have credit card debt or any type of debt, if you talk to your lender, you explain the situation, a lot of times they will, I think more now than ever, they'll try to work with you. And I think that that's also a step people need to take. First of all, I'd like you to talk to my wife about the grocery shopping, because she does most of that for us, and I'm quite certain she just indiscriminately knocks stuff into the basket. So if Mayor, if you hear this episode, I just threw you under the bus, and I'm sorry. I'm actually just kidding. Yeah, I want to stay married too, Jeanette, if you don't mind. So I'm gonna rescind that remark. There we go. Well, it's easy to do, though, Eric. I do it myself. I'm guilty of it constantly, but But honestly, when I was really living on that paycheck to paycheck time in my life, that was one area, boy, that you save. Same with personal care items. I mean, you see these things where people, are use like at a pharmacy, all these like, bucks back or the rewards, and then they use it, combine it with sales, and they end up spending $10 and they get $100 worth of things. My mother's caregiver was a big person that did that, and she would show me what she did, and it was amazing. So it's worth the time. And just one other thing in regards to the budget is, I think, in my dad's day, I have a whole chapter on this in my book, the envelope system. I mean, he had envelopes that were marked groceries, gas, clothes, what have you. And when he would get paid, he would put that cash for that month in that envelope. And when we ran out of that cash, it was a lot of pasta for dinner until the next payday. That is that consciousness of your money. He had a relationship with his money. That's the problem today. We don't have a relationship with our money. We don't have cash. We don't turn over, our hard-earned cash. We give a credit card and we're unconscious as we sign it, myself included, many times. I think, for example, I was in New York once and I was shopping and I bought some clothes and I was talking to someone and I didn't even look. And when I got back to the hotel, I said, "Oh my God, I just spent this much." And I think it was like $700. And I wasn't anything even amazing that I just was a couple pairs of pants. And I thought to myself, would I have stood there and turned over 7 $100 bills for this? And there was no way. And so I brought it back and I kept like $150 of the stuff that I really wanted. My dad had a relationship with money because he touched it. He turned it over. We have to get back to having that relationship. And I know we don't use cash, but we use currency. We need to be aware. Use your debit card. Keep track of it. Know what cash you're turning over. That to me is the key to the money mindset.
I think it goes even deeper than just the lack of physical cash. So many apps and so many financial institutions have created what feel like games. Even investing has become gamified. And I think that's actually quite dangerous because these aren't games. I mean, this is your livelihood. This is not Atlantic City or Las Vegas. This is your livelihood and your financial future. And it is so easy to hit an ATM or to just swipe a card and think nothing of it until the 28th of the month when you get your statement. Mm-hmm. For people who pay their credit cards in full every month, which I encourage absolutely everyone to at all times if you're able, and hopefully you're able. If that's the case, yeah, there's perks, there's airline miles. If you're traveling again, there's cash back, there's all kinds of different things. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I get 2% back on everything I buy. Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty significant as long as you don't pay interest.
Exactly.
So you can make it a tool. Now, you mentioned starting with the have-tos and writing down the things in your budget that are critical. For example, the student loan payment's not flexible, you have to pay it. But that works when you're 22. What happens when you're 17 and you're contemplating borrowing $50,000 a year for an undergraduate education in the fine arts? And you really don't know, and I'm picking on that, it could have been anything. I was an English major, so I'm allowed. But if you were going to borrow that kind of money for an undergraduate education when you're too young to have any idea what that's really going to be.
Yeah.
I think that's a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think, I always recommend, what's exciting to you at 17 or 18 might not be as exciting to you when you're in your 20s and when you're looking at the career opportunities. I think there's a lot of great community colleges out there where you can go and get your undergraduate, get different, classes in the areas that you want to possibly pursue, and spend 2 years deciding, is this really what I want to do? Are these classes what interest me? Because 9 times out of 10, unless you're, really completely sure of something, you change your mind. And so I think that that's one way to save a lot of money. And then also it gives you time to maybe save a little money, apply for some, different grants, different scholarships. I have a whole chapter in there about scholarship money that goes unused because there's a lot of random scholarships out there that people just don't know about. So it gives you time to prepare. I think that is so important, to have a plan, not only a plan of action, but a plan of payback, and how to lower how much you'll actually be spending on your college.
How much time do you spend, or do you encourage people to spend, balancing between the living for now and the planning for the future? There's and let me just add a little bit of color to that real fast before you answer, because we've seen people who literally are incredible savers, and they save a huge amount of what they make, and then they never enjoy it, and they're not healthy enough, or they die too soon, and it's just they never took the trip, they never lived their lives. We certainly see other people who spend $1.10 for every dollar they make and wind up in trouble in a whole different way. How do you strike a balance there? What do you suggest or recommend to maintain that without going too far either direction?
Yeah, I think no matter what, that's kind of two parts to that answer here. Is the first thing is, I think no matter how much you're making, even like I look back at my parents when they were, talk about living paycheck to paycheck, they always had fun. They always got together with they had the gang, which was the group that they grew up with. It's a great story. But they would get together and have potluck dinners. They'd have picnics. They'd take advantage of free museum days. We grew up and we had a lot of fun. So there's free ways to enjoy your life. Then when you get to a place in your life when you're living more comfortably, I don't think you should be afraid to, spend the money in a way that on things you enjoy, taking the trip. It's just when you do that, let's say you say, all right, we're going to go spend 3 weeks in Europe. We've saved for this. We've earmarked this money. We can enjoy this. Still, look for the best flights, look for the best deals on hotels, and go, but just, take the time it takes to make sure you're getting the best deal. You don't want to be the guy in the seat where the person next to you paid half of what you're paying, so just do your research. But I think, and I think you get to a place in your life where you have money and you're thinking about retirement. And this is where I think, financial planners working with someone who knows how to make your life enjoyable as you grow older, and making sure that you'll have the money 10 and 20 years from now. And, one of the things that I always say is you want someone who knows now whether you're going to be missing out on something later on unless you do something right now. They can tell you, hey, look, I would invest here. I would do this. I would save this. You could do this so that later on you're not struggling. And I think that's I see a lot of value in that, a lot of value. And so I think there's different stages. One, you're kind of in control, and the other, you could work with someone to help you along that path. But I think you have to enjoy life. One of the best stories is when my dad, he saved, and we took a lot of little local staycations. But my mom had no idea how much money he had saved. And when he was passing away, my mom was worried about, am I going to have to go live somewhere, when eventually, and this and that. I said, no, Mom, Dad saved enough that, you and Dad saved enough that we'll have someone come into the home. You don't have to leave the home. And I told her how much he had saved in the bank. And her mouth dropped, and she looked at him and she said, and we never went anywhere. And, here, it was just so funny.
Right.
He's on his last days. It was one of the most priceless moments. They were married 65 years. But in a way, it was good because my mom she's still alive, and we still are able to give her the care. But I think we have to enjoy our lives. But also, I think living within your means is very enjoyable, and finding, I don't know, I think 2020 was very humbling for a lot of us, because we realized the value of a hug. We realized just the value of simplicity, of just being with family. If COVID taught us anything about humility, I think it came through the being in a position where we couldn't see or hug people. So I think we go back to basics now, and we learn to enjoy within our means. And if your means allows you to go to Europe for 6 months, great. But if your means allows you to do a staycation and have fun at a local motel, then enjoy that as well.
So, Jeanette, you've done tens of thousands of stories on consumers, and you've done some investigative work. I think you blew the lid off some wireless carriers who were fleecing the public, and you've done some investigative stuff. Has there been, other than the $100 kid's wardrobe that I know launched your passion for this and launched your career, but was there one sort of aha moment or one story that jumps out at you that you said, I can't believe I got involved in this, but boy, am I glad I did?
Wow, what a great question. I did do a lot of stories that stayed with my heart and jumped out at me and grabbed onto me. I think the one story, I think it was really a powerful story for me. I used to do, when I was at CBS, try to help consumers. And I would say the overall pattern was the people that would write to me and or call in on our hotline that they were having consumer troubles were a lot of times people that just didn't know exactly how to talk the talk. In other words, how to call, and they would find at customer service and really know their customer rights. And that, I think, was like the overall theme. But there was one story about a woman who had really a rough life. She had a child that had cerebral palsy. She was a struggling single mom in the Bay Area, and she had been in a really not great relationship when her child was born, and she realized she needed to be a mother before anything else, and with the partner she was with, that was not the situation. And so she had been renting an apartment. It was her name was on the lease, and this guy would not get out of the apartment. He wouldn't, and so she went, and told the sheriff and the police and said, "Look, I'm moving. He's on the lease." To make a long story short, because her name was on it, the lease, it affected her credit. It affected her credit so severely that she couldn't even get the proper housing because it ended up turning into eviction. And so the eviction showed on hers, even though she tried to do all the right things. So it went on her credit. She couldn't get the right. It was a really sad situation. And she was trying so hard with a child with very severe special needs. So she called me up, and I was able to help her. I contacted the 3 credit reporting bureaus. I explained the situation. I contacted the lawyer that had done the eviction. He contacted the landlord. It took months, but we got everything resolved so that her credit was cleared up and her name was cleared, and she was able to to rent a house that was a much better neighborhood. Much better for her child. It had wheelchair access. So that stood out to me because it really made me realize how we could do something as simple as signing a lease and not realize all the things that could happen down the way. So I realized at that moment how powerful your signature is. And I always have told consumers, just know what you're signing. Know the potential downside. Now, this is an extreme case, but also know your credit impact. Like, people forget about their, things going on their credit or their credit scores. And it's important. You can get 3 free credit reports a year through annualcreditreport.com. I think that's the truly free one. And know your credit. So that stood out to me because for so many reasons, but mainly because how something could snowball and affect you for years.
That's an amazing story, and I'll bet you somewhere she is remembering that in a way that that was life-changing, that you can't even imagine,
Yeah.
and has shared that story with other people, no doubt, and given them hope. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I've actually stayed in touch with her. When I was leaving CBS, I remember it was the last phone message I got was she was crying on the phone, and she said, "Jeanette, you're my angel. I'm so excited. You won't believe this. We have a house. It has a little white picket fence, and it has wheelchair access." And it was like just such a great way to end that phase of my work there. But there were so many stories. And I'll tell you, Eric, the best stories were the stories that of people. It wasn't something that was a report that came out from, some government agency, although those were good stories, but it was always what real people were experiencing. I'll tell you, the strength of the human spirit, its willingness to change, its ability to change, its mindset, it's in there. And I also, one other thing I'll say is to take it, people just, there's an awareness, know what's available out there for you, through help, because it's fine to accept the help because it's there to get you to the next place.
I'm so disappointed that we're at the end of the show because this has been so fantastic. I knew you'd be a wonderful guest, and I had no idea just how moving our conversation would be, and so I thank you for that. I need an extra credit assignment, though, because you're not getting off the hook here. Our listeners need to know what they can do as one action item coming out of our time together today. What would that extra credit assignment be?
So the extra credit assignment for the listeners is quite simple, but probably the most important thing that they will do. Whether you're ready on your journey to financial freedom or just starting, I want you to just do a list, 2 lists. 1, things that are set in stone that you have no control over, and 1 list of things that have flexibility. And think of everything. I mean, it could be your coffee and scone that you buy in the morning. And look at the list of flexibility and pick 3 of those things, just 3 to start with, and decide how you could either eliminate that cost or lower it. And then I did that at the beginning of the year as an experiment for myself when my book came out. And I was able to save I think it was about $160 a month. I called my cell phone carrier. I got a lower rate. I called my home alarm system. I got a lower rate. And there was one other thing, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I did, and I saved about $160 a month. Do that, and then that money is now money that you can put into your savings account. And then just decide that you want to find joy in saving.
Great advice, great extra credit assignment. I encourage everyone to follow that. I think it's an easy but incredibly important exercise. So where can folks find out more about you? Where can they get a copy of your book?
Yes, so The Joy of Saving is available on Amazon, and I have a whole Joy of Saving community, Jeanette Pavini, The Joy of Saving community through Facebook and Instagram, and I'm more than happy to always share tips. People send in their tips, and it's just a real community where we try to find, joy and happiness in what we have and in saving money.
Well, I love it. I hope folks will check out your website and a copy of your book. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us this morning. I think we ran long, but I just wanted to hear everything you had to say. So thank you, Jeanette. This was a pleasure.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you for all you do for you and for your listeners, really.
Thank you for listening to Don't Retire, Graduate. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Don't Retire, Graduate is a book available in print, Kindle, and audio formats, and a workbook with all the exercises you need to build your own financial freedom plan. For more information, go to brotmanmedia.com or buy your copy and leave us a review on Amazon. Please also check out our online financial literacy courses at bfguniversity.com. We'll be back next week with another installment of Office Hours, and in 2 weeks with another engaging guest. For now, this is your host, Eric Brotman, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
From this day forward, let us begin changing the way we view retirement. Today, I implore you, don't retire, graduate. Visit our website at brotmanmedia.com to subscribe. And please like us and post comments on social media. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Brotman Financial or any other entity discussed.